one big thing linking to what Sipa just said about the vacancy in DPSA. There was supposed to be a strike today.
Yeah.
And there's an interdict on the table about a strike. So the whole issue about the civil servants' possible strike is a bit of a poison chalice. And that's why the president didn't fill that post, because probably nobody wanted it so fast. So one of the things that we need to look out tonight is who's going to have to deal with, on their first day, which will be tomorrow, a strike in their hands of civil servants who are paying for blood, because they were promised a particular increase, then the government reneged, went to the Concord. It's all a big mess. So that's another big position that we tonight will be curious to know who's going to be given that poison chalice.
Absolutely. So there's that unwelcome position, perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. Maybe people are just going, thanks so much, really honoured, but just actually no.
I don't want it.
You know, deal with public servant strike, which is actually over a year of resentment because of the reneging on that deal.
Yes.
Then a 3% increase is just implemented. And now they're going, actually, sorry, we're not discussing this year's increases because we've still got stuff from last year. So I'm not sure whether that's more awful than the energy or the electricity minister. Everyone says it's going to be Jose Enso Ramakgopa. Susan, you know, I interviewed him a few weeks ago and I asked him, are you going to be it? And he's like, no, I'm very busy with infrastructure building and investment attracting. And I said, yeah, but if you're asked, what will you say? And basically, obviously, he would do what the president asks. This is a man who's been in government. He was mayor for a time. He's got a track record, not all of it flawless, of course. Do you think that, I mean, this is, of course, understanding if the job is actually going to make a difference. Do you think he'd probably be the best candidate?
Oh, I am not sure there is a good candidate for that job. It is, as you use the term, poison chalice, and there are a few of those chalices around. And enemies could easily be deployed for, imagine Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma in state administration, for example. Job that nobody wants, but that could also open all kinds of options, possibilities of alliances, etc. But back to the Ministry of Energy, I kept on wondering today when 2 extra MPs were sworn in, whether that is not the place where Ramaphosa is going to bring in an outside, a surprise external person. And there's also one of the factors that is being thrown into the mix, and amongst many other demographics and geographics that have to, and alliance memberships that have to be balanced in this matrix mix. It could also be a strong outside woman, for example. And it would have to be a person without track record, without baggage in the system, because you need so much credibility in that post. Because in a way, the people of South Africa do count in this. And that is because people have to be made to believe that there is an ANC in charge of government who can actually govern, can effectively govern, and can be voted for come elections in just over a year from now. That is much of what this cabinet reshuffle is about. Besides Ramaphosa building his own bases, that is absolutely right. He will be looking at that. He has to balance this whole matrix of factors, but it's also about creating the belief, making a credible government in the eyes of the people. This is something that can still be voted for in come next year's elections.
I've got to ask you about Palapala. I mean, we've all been discussing it this evening. The news this morning, the Revenue Service Tax Authority saying, look, we don't have any traveller declaration for this $580,000. This is despite Hazim Mustafa saying, in fact, to Annika Larsen, and Annika's just, you know, she keeps getting these astonishing statements, but she did an interview with him, and he said to her, well, no, it's perfectly legal, I did declare it. But SARS is saying we have no traveller declaration. Prof. Keith Engel, tax expert we spoke to earlier, saying actually it's a Reserve Bank issue. We've actually just asked the DA offline because they couldn't chat to us before the President's speech, but they have said that in fact what they did is they did go to the Reserve Bank first of all, and they did ask the Reserve Bank if they had information. And they said that the Reserve Bank, in fact, were the first people that the DA approached regarding the Palapala money. but we didn't access information from the Reserve Bank because there wasn't anything to request, aside from their commitment to investigate a potential breach in currency regulation. They sent us a response saying that they would look into it. This was last year. So, I mean, this, I suppose, all comes back to the fact that there's a number of outstanding investigations on this very issue. In your view, Prof, how damaging is Palapala to the president at this point? It at one point over December, it was neutralized. It suddenly was like a topic, Pala what? You know, and I kept going, hang on, it was meant to be discussed at the conference, and it just went away. But do you think it's going to bring him down eventually?
And then Parliament tried to make it go away, and Ramaphosa, through his direct access application, tried to make it go away. And all these who are now on record as having been efforts, it has not gone away. So I think at this particular moment, and it is ironic that it comes on a day where Sir Ramaphosa has to present himself as a strong president and make some strong moves on a cabinet, that kind of baggage, I consider it to be baggage, because it is a setback for him. It confirms that there are questions, and questions that are unanswered in this whole configuration of what happened at Palapala. And bottom line is, it does not build President Ramaphosa's credibility. And it's not going to instill confidence that he is determined to clear it up and he is in the right. Those questions are hovering there and they are being strengthened. So it is a setback for him, it's weakening, and it is not a good day for him to have received that type of information in the public, not that he received it directly, but have seen that displayed in the public domain, because he has to act like the moral superior person in making the right cabinet moves and moving people with a lot of gusto around and allocating them their places. And this is not helping him do that.
Absolutely. But do you think, and we were discussing that a little earlier, about whether he should be making a move, not wait to be lambasted and crucified, but make a move to SARS, make a move to Reserve Bank, and come up with some kind of a settlement, right? Because his political cover, the parliament throwing it out, is almost like a political cover, because you need a majority there to get this ad hoc committee in place, etc. They've said no to that. Don't you think, in your view, that he should approach SARS and make an arrangement and say, look, it was a big mess, whoever was responsible under my watch, and here is my proposal to settle the thing once and for all. Do you think something like that, could work?
It would help make him appear more honest and forthright in that, because it is so obvious that there has been a mistake. It's so obvious. And to take that initiative and to come out on record and say there has been a mistake. But that sounds a bit like Paul Mashatile, who said he's made an honest mistake in not declaring the full truth.
Yeah.
But he won't be alone.
Yeah.
But that will probably appear stronger rather than weaker if he does that.
Than running away.
Yes, and this baggage is not going to go away.
Sure. Sally?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the average South African, and we'll probably tune in just to hear who the electricity minister is, hoping for a little bit of hope around the energy supply crisis, a sense of maybe getting the right team on board. And I don't think we've actually got the Voxies, but Aviu Mtila, our colleague, went out into the streets and spoke to ordinary South Africans and just said to them, what do you want? And the overwhelming message is, we don't care who it is, just get the job done. We don't care. There was also an item earlier about the Depression and Anxiety Support Group, SADAG, talking about how load shedding is impacting people's state of mind in South Africa. And we cannot ignore sentiment. I mean, we know that sentiment moves the markets. Sentiment absolutely moves us as South Africans as well. Do you think the president really has to not only get the right team on board, but start perhaps reading the room of South Africa?
Oh, most definitely, because there is this desperation, and part of the desperation is a question in people's minds: can this government do what is necessary to do? Has it got the right people to come in and do the job? Has it got the guts, deemed fit, capable enough to turn this around sufficiently to remain in those jobs, in those crucial portfolios? That is almost as important, if not more important, than any new appointment, because it can be sabotaged. Any new appointment, any new initiative can fall flat.
Absolutely. Do you think that, you know, in terms of the political environment, right, that it's a political environment that is ripe, in a sense, for whatever changes are made to change the fortunes for the ANC? Let's talk frankly in terms of, you know, the political environment. The parties seem to be having two big sticks to use to beat the ANC: the ESCOM electricity issue, and then the Palapala issue, if you look at the elections that are coming. What's your own assessment of whether or not there's a potential to turn the tables in the remaining time ahead of an election?
I do not see tables being turned, but I see the pace being stalled. And the pace of ANC decline can be stalled in this process. But turnaround, total turnaround, there are so many odds stacked against it, so much that is virtually undoable in this ESCOM job, that is going to be a tough, big ask to turn the tables around. But yes, the ANC decline can be stemmed. And it can be said that perhaps the ANC can then continue to drop by about 4 percentage points per national election and not go into the local government game where the ANC has been dropping by 8 percentage points per election.
And they dropped badly the last one.
Yes. And if they can remain at national level from even just from 58 to 54, and that would be a big, maybe a type of turnaround for them. Not really a turnaround, but stemming that pace of decline. Because it is a situation that lends itself to that, because there isn't an opposition party in own right without being in a coalition that can at this stage step into that space. So the ANC can still play a game that can keep them in power come next year elections. But
are you ruling out coalition? I think it's too early for a total breakdown of the ANC below 50, like we saw in the local government elections. I know that it's not, they don't always reflect each other in terms of trends, but where we are sitting now, if we have an election tomorrow, do you think the ANC can still be above 50 in your assessment?
Tomorrow would be difficult because the ANC needs that magnificent election campaign and apparatuses of itself, its machinery that usually come into play before elections. They are putting the building blocks in place, the narratives are there, they are ready to start rolling it out. And to get to secure the election victory, they would really have to roll it out.
To work hard.
I would say if that election is tomorrow, they don't have the credibility to do that. And that is where an important set of events like those of tonight, if it is dramatic and if it's convincing, it could help stem that decline and help the ANC stay in power if that election was tomorrow. But it will depend on who and what of tonight.
And speaking of tonight, what are we got? 20 minutes to 8. And what we're hearing from the team in Pretoria at the Union Buildings is, in fact, that the president is due to arrive really soon. So at this point, and I don't want to jinx anything, but it looks like it is going to happen at 8 o'clock. And Susanna, I know that you're going to stay with us as we take that announcement live. So it's due at 8 o'clock this evening. So many questions about what the president is likely to do with his cabinet. Of course, in the past, he's made commitments about trimming his cabinet, about bringing younger people into his cabinet. We know for sure there's an electricity minister coming on board, but will he use this opportunity to actually make a plan to change the cabinet in some way? Perhaps he can trim it down, even as he adds an electricity minister. I'm not sure if we're getting live visuals. Yes, we are.